be polite and keep your phones off and stay seated during our speaker. And now that we've done our chips that we always do, please help me enthusiastically welcome our speaker, Oscar.
Thank you. My name is Oscar. I'm an alcoholic. I want to welcome you if you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous. This isn't my favorite thing to do. It's not because I get nervous or any of those things. It's because I'd rather sit with you one-on-one and have an experience that way, because it's more important to me. But if I'm asked to do something in Alcoholics Anonymous, I have learned a long time ago that I just say yes. Many of the things I do in Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't feel like doing. I just do them because I'm supposed to do them. And those things are mostly attending events like meetings, coffee before the meeting, coffee after the meeting. I don't feel like doing those things, but I do them because I've always gotten a better result from doing them. After I leave, I feel just a little bit better inside. The spring inside of my alcoholic stomach is a little bit less wound up. I reconnect with people that I haven't gotten a chance to have a connection with in a while. I make new friends. Heaven forbid I meet somebody new, right? And all those things are really good reasons why I never say no to an AA request. I'm not an authority on Alcoholics Anonymous or on alcoholism. I've never made a penny on alcoholism. I practice the steps, I practice the traditions, and I practice the concepts. And on my way over here, I was going over one of the concepts on the phone with one of the guys that I sponsor who's in another state. And he had questions about the tradition, and I get all excited about that. I'll tell you that. I get ramped up about talking about that stuff because that's fun for me. You know, I'm driving, I'm not looking at the book, but I've seen the words a few times and it makes sense to me, so I can, get into it. I have to identify with my experience, my strength, and my hope. That's what I'm supposed to share tonight. My experiences as it relates to alcoholism. I was sitting at a meeting a few days ago where we had a business meeting, and we were discussing the difference between an open and closed meeting and who can participate and who can observe. And I'm going to relate that to what I'm doing tonight. What I'm going to share with you tonight, I hope, is strictly about my alcoholism and my recovery from there. That doesn't mean that I don't have problems other than alcoholism. I don't know anybody on this earth that doesn't have a problem other than one, And in this room, there may be a lot of people here, but there are people who have problems other than alcoholism. And I go to other places for those solutions. If my primary problem was other than alcoholism, I'd be in the wrong place. I was on the phone with another guy a little bit earlier this evening, and he was reporting to me how somebody died of an overdose. And he was telling me how that guy had never identified as an alcoholic, that he would just go to meetings. He was a heroin addict, but he was going to meetings because the vans took him there and people told him that it's all the same thing. And he kept going, but he wouldn't identify with the first part of the first step because he didn't have alcoholism. He had heroin addiction and other things probably. And he's dead. And tonight his father and his son, who I know, are grieving because he's dead. And he went to his primary problem was not alcoholism. So if you have a history of a drinking problem and you have a desire to stop drinking, you're welcome to attend and participate in your own recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's not my opinion. I'm just another bozo on the bus. It's a result of a lot of problems that we've had, and we've lost a lot of people. They created Al-Anon family groups shortly after Alcoholics Anonymous to help people who are dealing with us, the selfish, self-centered alcoholic. They started Narcotics Anonymous and Cocaine Anonymous and all these other programs to assist the people that have those primary problems. I attend things at the VA because I'm a combat veteran and I need to get help outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. It has nothing to do with you guys. And if I started telling you about those things, you would either look at me with a glaze, or some of you who have experienced it might not understand it or feel like that's too much. And in any case, I'm an alcoholic because at some point in my life, early, to some, late to me. At 11 years old, I started picking up alcohol to drink. And I didn't drink because I liked the taste. I didn't drink because, it quenched my thirst. I drank chiefly for the effect produced by alcohol. And it got me out of my head. It allowed me to connect with you guys. I didn't feel connected to you guys. I didn't feel like I could be in a room full of people and feel totally alone. And when I started drinking, I didn't care about how I felt. I was just in a room full of people being social. And it wasn't my intention to drink to the point where I couldn't stop anymore, but that's what happened. I drank, and I did other things, I'm not like the only, I did other things, and if you offered it to me and it was free, I would take it. But I don't know that I've spent a lot of time going out there and hustling to get those other things. If you offered something across the table, why not? If you told me it was something, I remember when I got sober, my sponsor said I couldn't smoke weed and claim to be sober. And I thought, what the hell does that have to do with sober? And I don't have a problem with weed. I didn't say that to him. I said, okay, spons. And, and I kept away from it. And so far, I've still been okay with it. And I don't want to debate that with anybody. I don't care if you're doing it. It's none of my business. I'm not an authority on anything, and I don't have there's no rules here. I know for me that sober means, that nothing that affects me from the neck up. I'm very scared of pills because I had a sponsor when I was 5 years sober who took pain medication, and he started drinking vodka again because he overshot his pain medication. He was taking a lot more than he was prescribed for his bad back, and it wouldn't fix. And then he started drinking vodka, and 9 months later he drank himself to death and he died. I don't know if you've seen an alcoholic death, but it's pretty ugly. He had bile coming out of his orifices, and he was found dead on his knees next to a bed. And that scared me. It may not scare you, but it scared me. And I got yelled at by my sponsor when I had to have surgery because I didn't want to go under. I was so scared of that happening to me that I was yelling, no, spons, you don't understand, on the phone with him when the anesthesiologist was trying to convince me to do it. That's what happened to me. I'm really scared of that stuff. I didn't look at it like a free high, I was like, that just scares me. It's life and death. I'm not playing with the full deck. I got to be careful with myself. I take this very seriously that I'm sober. And if I was just an alcoholic, not drinking and working the 12 steps would make me a really well-adjusted human being, and that's not the case. I'm not a well-adjusted human being today. I come with character defects. I have a lot of things that I keep from you on the normal, because I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous by practicing the 12 steps how to take a series of contrary actions, how to treat people better than I think they deserve, how to not use profanity in most of the conversations that I'm going to have with you, how to pause when agitated or doubtful, how to remember that it's not always about me. Mostly it's not about me. How to remember things because of the steps that, how you view me has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with how you view me. Just like when I was a newcomer, I viewed the world in a different set of, I had a different prescription on, and I saw the world as a dangerous place, and I saw the world was out to get me, and I saw God as something I had to try to avoid at all cost. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, I got a new pair of glasses, and I see trying to do God's will as the only choice that I have today. I don't have another choice anymore. I try to do God's will all day long because it's the only thing that's going to give me that reprieve. I'm not going to drink if I don't pray today, but I'm going to set myself up to become restless, irritable, and discontented. And if I continue to do that for too long, I will forget, because I have a forgetter, and I will forget that I shouldn't do something. And then I will do something, and I will be off the course, off the beam. I'll be not following God's will. I'll be, no longer following my true north. And then I'll start prostituting my own program and prostituting my own values. And then I'll feel shame, remorse, and guilt. And then I might feel helpless. I might feel hopeless. And I've lost hope at that point. And what's going to happen to me might happen to you. And I hope it doesn't happen to me. I just know that's my way of going. What's going to happen to me is I'm going to need relief from that feeling of shame, remorse, and guilt. And I'm going to drink. So I do this because it's a life and death thing for myself. I started at 11. By 12, I was already labeled a burnout and a space cadet. I grew up in Venice, West LA, Santa Monica, skateboarding, surfing, punk rock, throwing rocks. I can give a whole talk on throwing rocks. There weren't any video cameras to catch us doing things, and I developed a nickname, the Alibi. You did whatever you were doing, putting in work in the neighborhood, and you hung out with me. I had a way of getting us out of trouble because I was the alibi. I can use words to get us out of trouble with law enforcement and authority figures. And so I became the alibi. I mean, even out of my mind, I could wing it. I developed the craft of dumping things just at the right time and you didn't see it, where they check you and you had something on you, but whatever I had on me was no longer on me. And that was I don't know if it's a talent or maybe it was luck. It was just a matter of time, I guess. I ran underneath that car. I hit under that car and you hit under that car and they looked under that car and I got out and ran and they didn't see me and they arrested you. I just knew which car I got lucky. I knew that car would probably be a better choice. I went over that fence or over onto that tree, whatever I did to get away from, responsibility, or whatever I could do to get away from the consequence. I was not accountable to anyone or anything. I blamed everyone and everything for the way things turned out at every turn, especially when it didn't turn out the way I expected it to. In Alcoholics Anonymous, I had to learn to take a look in the mirror and look and see where I was selfish, self-centered. The 4-step was really important for me, and I didn't want to do a 4-step. By 13, I wasn't looking too normal. I was really skinny. I stopped going outside in the daytime. I was just hanging out at night, and I started carrying weapons on a regular basis. I'm not talking about 13-year-old carrying a gun. I'm talking about I carried a padlock to punch you quicker. Somebody had brass knuckles. I was all about brass knuckles. Somebody had a knife. I was in. Somebody had a bat and they nailed a bunch of nails to stick out of it. And I was like, I'm taking that bat with me everywhere because I was afraid of you and I didn't want to deal with you and I wanted to hit you as quickly as I could and get away. My sponsor used to say that he developed the art of ambush, and I understood what he meant because I was good at ambushing. Sucker punches, man, there are no rules out there. Bite, chew, kick, punch, whatever. And I often had to experience that because I was often in a series of misunderstandings and bad breaks and found myself 3-on-1 and I was 1. So I learned how to throw sand in your eyes quickly as I could, get 2 or 3 of you blinded and then take on the one guy that I thought I couldn't or whatever, I didn't always win these fights. My brother used to tell me that I was so stupid, I didn't realize I had lost. And I kept fighting anyway. And he said, sometimes you won just because you kept hanging in there. And I was like, well, not always. My face got bashed in a lot of times with all kinds of objects, not just punches. My nose was really twisted up. I couldn't breathe through my nose for many, many years growing up. I had to be sober for a couple of years before I finally decided to get that surgery for my nose. And I didn't even want the anesthesiologist to talk to me. I couldn't even breathe. I didn't want you to put me under because I was so scared of going back to that world. I had no way of understanding how to communicate with people, often misunderstood, very sensitive, drank as much as I could to just fit in, just forget that anybody else mattered. And then I started overshooting the mark. I didn't do it on purpose. I overdosed at 17, not on purpose. I was drinking a case and a 6-pack, some beer. I like to hang out at the parks. I love park drinking. All my lizard friends, they were at the park there with me. We had the boom box and we're playing Bad Company and, Till the Day I Die. And I was just singing those songs like it was me, like my national anthem, and you offered me whatever you offered. I never asked you what it was. I said, sure. And then afterwards I might say, what was that? And you gave me whatever you gave me. And I guess that night I got a lot of stuff handed to me. And I overshot the mark by a long shot. And I just remember laying on the side of the gutter thinking I was going to die like Jimi Hendrix, throwing up and stuff. And they escorted me over to my parents' house and ditched me on the front porch. And parents were kind of worried about me and called 911 and the ambulance came. And I remember sitting in the back of the ambulance singing Rolling Stones, Sister Morphine in my head. I was just singing it like, why does a driver, I love that stuff. I was a drama queen. I was into it all. And those were good times. I wasn't going to amount to anything. I wasn't going to be anybody. I was going to end up with a bullet in the back of my head in the gutter with a John Doe tag on my foot in Venice. That's how I saw my future. I knew that before I turned 21. And so I was watching the news, Don't watch the news. It's stupid when you're feeling that way. And the news told me there was a guy named Gaddafi, and he was the bad guy. And he was supposed to be the bad guy to me. And he had never come to my house and stole my bike or spray painted my parents' car. You know, I'd done that to people, but he had never done that to me. And I decided I was going to buy a one-way ticket. Well, actually, I first went to all the branches of the military, and I asked them if I could join their military because I wanted to go become a suicide bomber and kill Gaddafi. And they were like, "You're crazy, kid, get out of here." And I didn't like what they said. I was 17. I was like, all right, whatever, I'm out of here. I'm not going to make it to 18. I'm not going to make it to 21. I'm going to die. And then I go back to my very good friends in the park, loser 1 and loser 2 and loser 3, and we're just talking about it. And they go, "Dude, you need to buy a one-way ticket and go to the French Foreign Legion and go do it there. They'll let you do anything." And I thought, wow, that's a great idea. So I go home to my parents and I tell them, I want to go to France. I want to become a paratrooper. And my parents were sick of me. I don't know how your parents were at some point, but my parents were sick of me. They said, "Let's buy you the ticket. One way, we're buying you the ticket right now. The planes, when do you need to leave?" And I was gone. They were so thankful. And I ended up, now, I thought because I went to, I don't know, a class or two in French, that I knew French. So I showed up all thinking, and I did not understand a word they were yelling about. And some guy from Spain that my dad had met 20 years earlier showed up to pick me up at the airport and took me to a lady who was very kind. And they discussed my future arrangements in French, and I didn't understand. It sounded like Oscar, problème, c'est pas. And I didn't even know what any of that stuff meant, but I knew they were talking about me. And so then the guy took me to the recruiter, and the recruiter guy scared me away. So I got drunk. I came back drunk, tried to get in again. He scared me away, got back drunk, more drunk. And I kept getting drunk until they finally didn't care what he said. I'm signing across the dotted line. And I had no idea what I was doing, I went off and I became a French paratrooper. This was in the 80s. Lebanon had just happened, the bombings of Beirut. My first deployment was right after the bombings of Beirut. I was a Sergeant Airborne infantry guy. We were like super duper paratroopers sent from the heavens of St. Michael to push the devil into hell, and that's how we were trained. And I was in fear, and I couldn't tell my guys that I was in fear. I'm a Sergeant Airborne. I can't tell my guys I'm scared. Go get me some booze is all I would say, and they'd get me some booze, and nobody's watching our perimeter because I'm busy passed out. We go to Ethiopia. There's a famine going on in Djibouti, and people are dying in front of me, and I just need to stay drunk. I can't keep dealing with this. And we go off to some little island, and they were having an uprising, and I lose my first paratrooper. He dies in my arms, but I didn't know he was dead for about 3 hours, and I kept doing CPR on this guy. His magazine cartridges had gone into his lungs and punctured them, and I didn't know that. It was internal bleeding. I didn't know that, I just knew half my troops went off to go get revenge up the hill, and we had got ambushed on a like a little switchback, and powerless. Went back to Ethiopia. They were still having the same problem. People were dying. Came home to Paris, lived in the 18th arrondissement, which was Pigalle, which is where the red light district is. And people asked me where I lived. I'd say, you go down, you pass the sex shop, turn right at that sex shop, past Bruno's tattoo parlor, second transvestite prostitute to the right is my door. And that's where I lived. And bar hopping was different. I enjoyed bar fights, and I loved group-on-group bar fights. There was nothing better for me than to get a whole bunch of people together against a whole bunch of people, because the anarchy and insanity of it calmed me down. I didn't mind getting my head beat in. I just needed to get my head to shut up, and it wouldn't shut up, and I had to drink, and I had to be violent, and I wasn't violent because I'm a bad person. I'm violent because I'm scared of you, and I'm scared of being by myself, and I don't want to hear the noises in my head. And I come home because my sister's getting married, and they want me to re-up, and I want to re-up, but I want to get a little break. I want to take a break. I want to go home. I want to see my sister get married. And they said, you're not taking a break. Re-up right now or get out of here. You finished your contract, time to sign up a new one or get out of here. And I said, F you, I'm out of here. I'll show you. And Bomb threats were happening in Paris at the time. I was really good at that job. I had a little job for about a month where I just was doing stupid things. Anyway, got enough money to get home. Got home, my sister was gonna get married. I tried to pick a fight with her fiance. I was asked not to be at the wedding. I showed up at the wedding anyway. I showed up drunk. I showed up in a white tuxedo with a top hat and a cane. I brought 2 promiscuous women along for the fun. They were drunk. We were catcalling my sister's wedding the entire time. Ruined my sister's wedding. Her only boyfriend she's ever had, my oldest sister, she was such a quiet person, and here I am destroying the most important moment in her life because I'm such a selfish, self-centered person. And I have no idea what I'm doing anymore. I can't stop drinking. I got nightmares. I've got lots of terror going on, and I'm reactive, and I've been reactive for a couple of years now, and I'm reacting to everything. I'm not pausing when agitated. Something happens. I get in another thing, and this time I got to call the cops on myself. And everybody saw me show up. Like my vehicle was very obvious. I had a 1967 Datsun 610, orange Mr. Magoo looking car with a sticker on the back of it that said, "Don't laugh, your daughter may be in this car." I mean, I was sticking out like a sore thumb. I was the ire of the neighborhood. I had no brakes. I had a padlock on the back of the trunk because it would pop up inadvertently when I was driving. I drove with the e-brake. I had no insurance, of course, and I just had escape routes if I bump into things and people and cars. I was an animal, and I didn't understand how to live. And after that incident, I had to call 911 on myself, and the police showed up, and the guy knew me. He looked at me and he goes, "Hey, Oscar, I remember you. I haven't seen you in a couple of years. What have you done with your life?" And I wanted to tell him all about the super duper paratrooper, high speed, low drag stuff that I had done, and I said, "I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing. I've been on a merry-go-round, and I can't get off this merry-go-round. That's what I'm doing." And he should have arrested me, although, I did not admit to anything, nor am I doing it at the podium because this is being recorded. But he said, "I want you to lay low and don't leave the county of Los Angeles." So I figured if I go hide in a crack house in Pacoima, that's laying low to me because I'm not a crackhead, you know what I mean? Crackheads are in crack houses and they're not paying attention to me at all because they're busy looking in the carpet for one more chunk. And I'm just kicking it. And what do is I show up with a hostage. A hostage is somebody that when you're not ready to date, but you grab somebody anyway. That's what she was. She was my hostage. And I took her with me to this crack house, and somebody offered her something, and she, hid behind it a big book. There was a big book in this sparsely furnished place. She hid behind it like we were the devils and the vampires. And I found out that she was 90 days sober, and I thought, now I'm really going to hell for everything I've done plus this. I just brought a newcomer to a crack house. That's the worst thing I could have done because a couple of years earlier, before I bought that one-way ticket off to Europe, well-meaning members of Narcotics Anonymous, of all people, had gotten wind of us doing what we were doing in somebody's house. Because the lady that lived at this house, her son had just come back from juvenile hall. And so we thought, great, she's going to Al-Anon now because her husband's in a penitentiary. Her son just got back from juvenile hall. So she needs Al-Anon. So she's got the house gone. And so we're just partying in the living room because it's a safe place to party. It makes perfect sense to me. Then they'd come back from coffee and feeling kumbaya and find us all wasted in their living room. And so she asked the NA people that were next to the Al-Anon meeting if they could 12-step us. Her son wouldn't want nothing to do with them, but my parents were all about it. Here, take our son. Scared of them, but they were still throwing me on the back of Harley Davidson motorcycles, and I'd be riding around to NA meetings and CA meetings and AA meetings and all these different meetings. They go, find out what you identify with, and then we'll keep taking you there. I was not done. I was not ready. I thought these people were over 30 years old. I couldn't trust them. Maybe when I'm that age, maybe when I'm at their age, then maybe I'll do something about it. But I'm too young. I'm still a teenager at the time. And it was a guy named Danny T, Frank V, and Joe Gomez. And they were my Eskimos. They introduced me to the program. So when I hit bottom, when I was in that crack house in Pacoima, I remembered one of the places they took me to, because they took me to a lot of places. And it was the Burbank Angelino Club. And I pulled up and I thought, I wish I was just an alcoholic. I got problems other than alcoholism. They're not going to let me into that meeting. I got way bigger problems than alcoholism. but I can't stop drinking. But I told her, go inside, get a sponsor, make sure that she doesn't tell you no dating in your first year. Don't get one of those Nazis. Get a person that doesn't say anything, who's gonna love you till you love yourself people. Get one of them. And she went into the meeting, and there was a lead singer of a punk rock band who was speaking that day at that meeting. And during the coffee break, Joe Gomez came out of the meeting. He had 19 years clean and sober from Narcotics Anonymous when I got sober. And I got out of my car because I knew him from before, and I wanted to ask him if he had any idea how I could buy a one-way ticket to China. I was going to go to China this time and become a rice farmer, because I ain't going down. I'm not going to jail. I'm out. But I don't have any money. I got no way to get a job. I'm unemployable. I cannot stop drinking. I tried work. I was getting fired from Toys R Us. I mean, I was not doing it. I couldn't work anymore, and I was just trying to figure out how I can get some money to go buy a one-way ticket to go to China. And instead, what came out of my mouth was, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. And he invited me into the meeting, and I sat in for the second half of the meeting. That was not me. That was God. You know, I did not think this was going to work for me, because if you knew the kind of things that I did, you wouldn't let me in the meeting. If you knew the way I lived, you wouldn't let me in the meeting. If you knew how much I drank and how much I did other things and all the other things in my terrible life, you wouldn't want to be a part of my life. You wouldn't want to shake my hand. You wouldn't want to make me feel welcome. But you didn't ask any questions. I just sat down. Everyone laughed but me. I was morbidly depressed. Life was over. Here I've just been sentenced to this AA meeting. It's worse than death. And I started going to that AA meeting once a week, because I didn't want you to know that I didn't know anything. And they got literature anywhere up here? Oh, right there. That's where you get noticed. If you're new and you don't want anybody to know you don't know anything, don't go to the literature table, because everyone's going to notice that you don't know anything. That's how I thought. So I never went there. That was like taboo. That's where they hide the meeting directory, by the way. And I didn't want you to know that I didn't know anything, so I never went to the literature table. Consequently, I only knew where that meeting was, and that's where I went once a week, and I'd try to white knuckle it. You know, sometimes I'd drink some near beer, and I was like, oh, that's just like drinking. Might as well just keep drinking. You know, and I'd have to change my sobriety date, and I was keeping track on a piece of, on my notebook. I had code in case law enforcement or authorities had found my notes. There was a lot of things that used to be written on that little notebook, but at this point in my life, they were starting to become sparser and sparser, and I was trying to get sober. And one day I realized I had 15 days sober when a guy took a 30-day chip, and I thought, wow, I'm halfway there. I could do that standing on my head, because I hung around with a bunch of people that talk like that, and that's how I understood life. I remember getting a 30-day chip, and I had no self-esteem at the time. I looked down at my shoes, and I regurgitated whatever the last person had just said, and then I sat down, and the lady that sat next to me said, don't talk to me, you're wasted. I was that 30-day guy. With 30 days, I looked wasted, and I wasn't anymore, but I thought, I have just gotten to the point where I'm constitutionally incapable of being honest with myself. I don't even know I'm wasted. She just told me I'm wasted. And I looked at my cheat sheet book, it was 30 days. I got 30 days, and I got my first resentment in Alcoholics Anonymous. I will not use profanity, but I filled my mind laced with profanity as I expressed myself. You bleep, bleep, bleep. None of you guys are staying sober a long time. You guys keep coming in and out, right? Nobody stays sober. I didn't understand AA at all. I thought you all were, you all said keep coming back because you had to be nice to each other because you're his sponsor for a month, and then you're going to go out and swap positions, and they're going to take over as your sponsor. I didn't know people stayed sober. I had no clue how this program worked. I was coming out of a really thick fog. The second step was a hard pill to swallow. I literally was coming without coming to for a while, and I came to slowly, and then I came to believe, but it was really a longer process than I think some people get, and it was difficult. And so I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to outlast that resentment, that chick. Because she's going to eventually drink. That's what people do. I know she's going to drink eventually. So I got to get one of those sponsors, and I got to do everything they're suggesting that I do so that I can stay sober longer than her. I want to make sure that I'm here when she's drinking. When she drinks, I want to watch her drink, and hopefully she dies. And when she dies, I'm going to go to her grave and I'm going to piss on it. That was why I got a sponsor. And if you're getting a sponsor because you're on a van and you can't get your phone back till you get a sponsor, that's fine. Nobody cares why you get a sponsor. But when I got a sponsor, my life changed. I made a decision when I got a sponsor because I wanted to stay sober longer than that resentment was. And so I was willing to do whatever it took. And that was the reason why. It doesn't matter the reason why, if the heat's on or whatever. I'd forgotten all about the heat. I just wanted to stay sober to watch her drink and die. And so I decided I was going to get a sponsor, and I was going to do whatever he asked me to do unless it was illegal or immoral. I didn't have very good morals, and I wasn't sure about legalities much sometimes. So, and I hated him right away because he was 6'4". He looked like he was raised behind a white picket fence. He'd never been in the neighborhoods, and he looked like John Elway. I don't know if you've ever seen, just looked like a mama's boy, just like, oh, you're probably the football guy, like I was throwing rocks at you fools. I hate John Elway, by the way. I'm a Raider fan. It used to be something to be proud of, not anymore, but it is what I am. And I couldn't stand him. I mean, I really thought I was like, I just went to hell. Now I'm listening to John Elway give me direction. This is killing me. He taught me how to do things I never wanted to learn. He taught me how to be a gentleman. I didn't want to be a gentleman. He said, leave the women alone. That woman that I came to AA with suddenly disappeared because my sponsor said, stick with the men, leave the women alone. There are people in Alcoholics Anonymous that tell you that has nothing to do with your sobriety. Maybe it doesn't. It did for me. It did for me because I did not know how to treat people with love and respect and dignity. I was an animal, and I used you. And I had to admit that I used you. And I had to look in the mirror for a while. And it took me in my first year of sobriety of talking to the men only, not getting phone numbers from women, not hanging out with you guys, not pretending anything was going on, nothing. Man, my sponsor was so mean to me. He was strict. I'm walking up at a meeting where it's mixed, like guys and girls, and I see a female and she's scantily dressed. And I'm like, that's exactly my type. And I walk up to her. Spons catches me on the way and he goes, hey, get over here. Go in the bathroom. Go say the third step prayer out loud. Come back when and on your knees too, by the way. And I was like, what the? So I grab a weapon. I go in the men's bathroom. I'm like sticking it out a knife. I'll shank anybody that gets near me or says anything or smirks. And I say this stupid prayer because it wasn't illegal or immoral to do it, but I thought it was wrong. It was inconvenient for one. Then I came outside all angry and I said, all right, Spons, I did it. He goes, all right, go talk to that new guy. I'm like, oh man, I want to talk to that new guy. I want to talk to that new girl. So I did that, and that's what I learned to do in Alcoholics Anonymous. Some people don't get that. Some people say, hey, you can have friends with benefits and blah, blah, blah. Do that. See if you stay sober. I don't know. You be the experimental guinea pig. I don't want to play that game. My life and death is what I'm talking about. And I had to learn how to be a gentleman, and I had to learn how to treat people with respect and dignity. And that wasn't going to happen by bouncing to the next fool. And that was a hard pill to swallow. I did not want to come here to AA to become a gentleman. I just wanted the heat off. Then I had a resentment. That's about as far as I'd gotten. I started working the steps like my life depended on it. I learned how to be on time. I learned how to show up where I was supposed to show up. I learned that by going to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous early. I didn't show up and sit in my chair. I didn't go to a group where people just sat in their chair before the meeting. We were asked to put something down on the seat, get up, and go shake people's hands. And everybody that I was going to meetings with was doing that. Nobody was just sitting down waiting for somebody to come talk to them. I tried that. It didn't last more than a minute. My sponsor says, hey, get up, go shake that hand. Put something down on your chair so you don't lose it. He was mean to me. And 7th tradition went by. I'm a newcomer. You know what I mean? I got like 60 days. Come on, man, I'm barely getting a job right now. Sponsor must have noticed me not put anything in the basket. And it seemed to me, now what he may have said was, what we try to do is become self-supporting through our own contributions. Try next meeting that you attend, bring something like a penny or something. No, what I heard him say was, listen, pal, you've been a taker all your life. Start giving back. Start putting something in the basket. Never let it go by without putting something in the basket. And I was trying to explain to him, I don't have a lot of money. And he said, I don't care if you don't have a lot of money. He goes, put a penny in the basket. Always bring a penny with you to a meeting. If you forget money, bring a penny to the meeting and put it in the basket. And I said, that's embarrassing, putting a penny in the basket. It makes me look poor. He goes, well, you just said you were poor. Put a penny in the basket. I mean, I had no out. He goes, when you got a job, we'll sit down together. We'll get together. We'll go through a budget together. We'll put everything down. You'll learn about the seventh tradition. You'll learn how to be self-supporting through your own contributions. You'll quit taking advantage of your parents that have suffered long enough from you. Quit borrowing money from your mom when your dad doesn't find out about it. Quit being a taker. Start giving back. And so I started bringing a stupid penny to the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I had a little bit more money, I changed up to a nickel. And one day it was a dime, then a quarter, and one day it was folding money. And I'm really grateful that I get to do that because I've developed self-esteem by doing that. I developed a habit. All of us develop habits. If we go to the gym on a regular basis, we develop a habit of going to the gym. If we work out in a certain way, we develop a habit of doing that. If we lay in our bed and hit the alarm clock and hit the snooze button, we develop a habit. That becomes what we do. I am what I do at some point. Not what I think or how I feel. I am what I do. So in Alcoholics Anonymous, I learned how to put something in the basket. Nobody cares. It's not to impress you. I'm not trying to throw down a 20 or a hundo. It's a penny, a buck. Nobody cares. $2 if you got it, whatever. Nobody here cares about it. It's for me to learn how to become self-supporting through my own contributions. It's a personal program of recovery. And so I learned how to put a penny in the basket because what I learned, if I don't, is how not to. I become comfortable and complacent by letting that basket go by. And nobody here needs your money. This place ain't that expensive. It's doing fine with or without you. It's for me to put that in the basket so that I learn how to be self-supporting through my own contributions. Half measures availed me nothing. And the only way I'm going to get anything, any kind of chance is if I take this program like my life depends on it. You guys taught me that if I wasn't having fun in AA, I wasn't doing things right. And I wasn't having fun in the early days of my sobriety. And back when I got sober in 1987, I got sober on August 9th of 1987. And we had Friday night dances, sober dances. We all went to the meeting. We all went to the dance. I didn't know how to talk to women without an ulterior motive, so I was scared, to be honest with you. But I learned how to hold a can of Coca-Cola in my hand, lean up against the wall, and just try to disappear. And one time a stripper came out of the dance, grabbed me off the wall and threw her leg on my shoulder, and I was like, I'm home. I'm home. This isn't so bad. She never asked for my number. I never asked for hers. She simply danced with me. She understood this was just a dance, and then it was done, and I was like, perfect. And that was it. I didn't go finding her for a second dance or nothing. I was like, wow, what a good experience. I learned how to have a little bit of fun. That was important for me. It was very important that she didn't ask me for my information, and it was very important that I treated her with respect and with dignity. I found out later she was a stripper. I didn't know at the time. The throwing the leg on my shoulder was kind of a giveaway, but I didn't know. I'm barely 5'7" on a good day with high wind. It's not like that's too hard. And I learned how to go to camping trips sober. My sponsor says you can do everything you ever did in drinking, except you can do it sober with the same people, except they're all sober now. We went on sober campouts. We went on sober fishing trips. We rented a houseboat, did Lake Mead. People made fun of each other in good stead, nothing really mean, no maliciousness. We went to people's houses when they were moving, and we all got together and helped them move out of their house to the next house. We went to watches and watched people get sober for a year. I finally turned a year. It's the worst thing that ever happened. I developed yearitis. I looked at a blonde, blue-eyed babe. At the time, I had a disease of blonde, blue-eyed babyism, and they had to be named Michelle at the time. I had a couple of more problems before I finally got off of that ticket, but that was the last ticket. I met a Michelle. She had nothing to do with AA. She was from my past. I lied to my sponsor and said I had to make amends. Sponsor, I forgot to put her on the list. I got to make amends. She just came over because I was in an apartment with a pool and it was summertime and it was in the San Fernando Valley. So she wanted to go use the pool with her little girlfriends and I wanted to make amends. I didn't know how to make amends. Guess what happened? She got pregnant. I became a father. Then I became a single father because she was on pills and drinking and sleeping. And I became a single father of a little girl. And I started raising that little girl without her assistance and no child support. The court ordered me to have sole custody because she wanted to just take advantage of the laws that women got at the time. For her, that's how she saw it. I'm not saying it was the way it was, but she saw it like, I'm the mom, I'm gonna have custody, you're gonna pay child support, and I'll tell you when you can come see the kid. And what ended up happening was the actions that I took was that of a dad. I cut the umbilical cord, I was present for my child, I wrote down on a weekly basis how much time I spent with my child, and when it came time to that court appearance, I had that child most of the time doing the things that I was supposed to be doing as a father. And then that court appointed me, without even having an attorney, sole custody of my child. I had no clue what that meant. I had no clue what it was like to be a father, but I knew for sure there was nothing that was going to stop me from being a father to that girl. It was not her fault. And her mother disappeared into the crackhead world, into a trailer park, and that little girl is still in my life. We were yakking about stupid things today. You know, my daughter is still in my life. I raised her by myself with the help of women in Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank God I treated you like ladies and with dignity and respect, because I did not know how to be a father and a mother. And these women taught me how to be a mother. And on Mother's Day, the most important thing that I ever get is a phone call from my daughter or a stupid text, because she's younger, so she texts everything. Happy Mother's Day, Papa. I went back in the U.S. military because as I was making the 9-step amends, I couldn't find the people in France. And this time I went to the United States Army, Special Operation Forces Airborne, because that's all I know is paratrooper. And I go off to Fort Bragg. I become a Sergeant Airborne again, sober. I deploy. I turned 9 years sober in Bosnia, in a little Serbian village. You know, I think this time I'm going to do better because now I'm sober. I got the steps. There was no AA there. I just got my home group was the Pacific group, and they were mailing me letters. They were mailing me care packages and cassette tapes of the Wednesday night meeting. The old man Clancy was sending me a weekly poop sheet. And I learned how to pick up the set of spiritual tools and lay it out at my feet. That's where I learned how to actually work the program. That's where I learned that meeting makers don't make it. People that work the steps and the traditions and concepts, they are the ones that make it. And I needed to do that. My life depended on it. And I stayed sober there. I turned 9 years sober. I came home. My sponsor at the time was Frank Jones, because the other guy had died at 5 years sober. Now I'm 9 years sober. I got Frank Jones for a while. He finally dies of Agent Orange. And I was still suffering from my first time in service and my current time in service, but I was sucking it up and driving on, and I wasn't telling you about it. I was just having nightmares at home, and I thought that was normal. I'd had nightmares for so many decades. It was like, it's normal. This is just a normal way to live. And when my sponsor finally turned to the VA to get help for Agent Orange, it made me feel that I could turn, because he was Sergeant Major in the Marine Corps. I mean, he's in Arlington. You know, I'm going to be lucky if I end up at Prescott Cemetery. You know, he's in Arlington. And when he turned to the VA, I found out that the VA here was better, because the VA where I lived in West Los Angeles was killing me. And I don't care if it's recorded. I'll tell you the truth. I felt like they weren't doing anything. And I was only walking around my best friend's gravesite, who was KIA in Baghdad. That was all that was happening. I moved here because I heard about the VA. I didn't move here to find a different way of living, or I have no political controversial issues to talk to you about ever. You'll never hear me talk about those things, because I practice the 10th tradition. I don't do it privately, so I don't have to do it publicly. I don't share about any of those things on social media, because I see the divisiveness that has caused us. You will not know what I think about God is. I will just ask you to find a God that you understand. I don't talk to my friends about that stuff. But I moved here for the help that I could get at the Prescott VA, and several years of getting that help, I saw that I could, and I married a beautiful woman. I married a lovely country girl named Cindy. I got to give her props. She prepared me to go to the VA, and she pushed me to go to the VA, and she was amazing, and I will forever be grateful for her. And I don't talk about her as much as I should. Frank died, and I got Larry Thomas as my sponsor. He's been my sponsor since 2015. And Larry's been a great example. Him and I are current in our lives. I had a good conversation with him about things today. And after getting help at the VA, I decided I was going to go back. You know, I'd retired early, and I went back to work, and I started working in the VA. Now I work at the VA in suicide prevention, because I lost enough people, and I didn't know how to stop that. And so now I work there, and I'm a combat vet, and I've got service connection. They even got me a service dog. It's really cool. I feel embarrassed about it, so I don't bring her to meetings, to be honest with you, because I'm self-obsessed, and I don't want you to think I'm weak, but that's the truth. I have a service dog, and I bring her with me to a lot of outreach events, and she keeps you away from me. If you don't understand what that means, I'll tell you some of the things I think after the meeting, but not at the recorded podium. But I'm grateful to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous in good stead. I'm just another alcoholic trying to, I don't really like doing this, you know. I'd rather talk to the alcoholic who still suffers by himself. Nobody at the VA knows that I'm an AA. I don't break my anonymity at my job. I do not use my experience, strength, and hope to make money. I work in suicide prevention, and all I share is my experience, strength, and hope as a combat veteran who has learned to use mental health and resources throughout the VA and outside of the VA. And that's how I stick to it. I don't do anything to break my anonymity at work. And when I was getting hired, they're like, dude, you got to tell them about your story. I was like, nope. If God wants me to do that, it ain't today. I was in the ER the other day with a veteran who was inebriated past, detox time. He kept hugging on me. I love you, man. And I never once told him I was an alcoholic. I said, look, I'm here with suicide prevention. Word on the street was you might have had a conversation with somebody that lent itself to this topic, and I just want to make sure that you have me as your resource. Here's some phone numbers. I want to check in with your doctor, and I'm going to keep tabs on you and see if we can help you along the way. Maybe you want to consider other options. Kept my mouth shut about all the other stuff that I could have said in an AA meeting. I know exactly what my steps are for me, and I know exactly what my traditions are, and I know exactly what my concepts are. All three of those are the three legs that keep me in good stead in the stool of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm never going to be perfect. I'm just another alcoholic trying to stay sober. I still have unresolved problems, but the 12 steps and outside things that need to help me for other things have taught me and teach me, if I'm diligent today, how to learn one day at a time to live comfortably with these unresolved problems. And if I'm going to skate on what I did 2 weeks ago, I'm going to become restless, irritable, and discontented very slowly, because alcoholism is a subtle foe and it sneaks up on you like the hair growing on me. One day to the next, I can't tell the difference, but after a couple of weeks, oh wow, it's getting a little on the ear. You know, that's how alcoholism is. I don't see it every day. It changes, but it changes. And so I have to do what I have to do in order to have that daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. If you're new here and you don't have a sponsor, and there's plenty of people that raise their hands to be a sponsor, they're phoneless. I'm sure they have a phone list. And I hope that you find that what I found here, and that was hope. Thanks.